I think there is a word that I think is pretty tight with boundaries, and it's respect.
Yeah.
Um, you know, you when you don't really set enough boundaries for yourself, it's almost like you kind of don't respect yourself,
Yeah.
and you're allowing other people not respect you.
Right.
And I love that you said that your Sam Adams quote,
Yeah.
um, that a rule, if it's not enforced, isn't a rule. Because it's one thing to be, just from the freelance photographer perspective. You're inundated with so many different clients from all the different walks of business,
Yeah.
and life. I mean, it can be just one person or it could be a company. Um, so if you don't have boundaries set in place, they're going to walk all over you, and they're going to name their price, and you're just going to go with it. Um, and I think another thing too that's interesting, because I guess I haven't had the experience you've had working with an organization,
Right.
is it's one thing to be a freelance creative,
Right.
and to be a staff creative. um the boundaries are, I feel like there might be different, because you
Yeah.
know the rules of the company,
Right.
but you also know your rules, or you're starting to learn your rules. Like, how does that work? Like, explain
Yeah.
to me how the boundaries can be set at a place of work.
Sure. First and foremost, it's the same thing as anywhere else, right? You have a code of ethics, whatever you want to call it. You have a handbook, and it's your job, it's your responsibility. You sign off on that, so it's your responsibility as an employee to make sure that you are doing the best you can to stick with that, right? And there's a lot of rules that we had to follow, like you can't accept gifts of over X amount of dollars, but you were offered all of them, just for a chance to have access. There were rules
Yeah.
around selling your tickets. You couldn't sell your tickets, like period. There were rules around posting your credentials, and I mean, you name it, right? These are, we're talking about, like small things. Like, you don't have it, probably somewhere as a freelancer it says don't take a picture of your credential and put it online, but most young freelancers, they're so amped in the moment, and they do a lay down shoot of all their cool stuff that they need to put on Instagram to show, like, this is what I'm doing, check me out, right? So there's a ego play in there that we can get into later,
Yeah.
that social media has put on us, right? Because we didn't do that
Mhm.
before. We called our mom and said, "Mom, guess what? This is what I'm doing." Um,
I still do
but
that. What are you talking
uh,
about?
yeah, same with me. And but the difference is that you are under, like, same thing goes there, right? If the rule is not a rule unless it's enforced, so there's going to be a lot of people who are going to push the boundaries of the rules, that happen in there. But then you mix in the fact that you are, that I was one of, I had myself that was full-time as a photographer, and then Pete that was full-time as a photographer, and that was, yeah, Jeff was there, he was also our photographer, and he was also our art director, but um everybody else was freelance, so now we're combining everything, right? And I'm combining all these things that I have to worry about, and we had so many discussions and deep discussions about, like, when is it okay for a freelancer to post images post game,
Mhm.
and as social got much better, or when Instagram basically took off, it was just like, then social teams had to come into play and say, hey, these are great pictures, guys, but you guys got to give us some time to post them, have some exclusivity on them. But what do we
Yeah.
want to do as photographers? We see a great shot, we want to get it out as soon as we can, right? Like, I think about,
Mhm.
the Cardinals shot, Kyle's that, or
Derek.
Derek Spencer, yeah.
Mhm.
And everybody right off the bat was like, I can't wait to see what Derek got. We all knew he got it, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially with how clear the sidelines are for this.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's always a question if you're going to get that end zone Hail Mary shot. But at that point, you know it's going to happen and you're waiting for it. And of course he nailed it, right? And of course he nailed the everything. But it was one of those things where it was just like, everybody wanted him to throw it up there, but he knew that he had to wait probably, for the team, because the team threw it out. They threw out that awesome gift that they did of all of his frames. And then he threw it up quickly after that. So it was that's just kind of a microcosm to say, like, the rules are the same, but different. And so as a freelancer, you're kind of expected to come in and follow that. And you probably sign a contract to that extent. So I don't know if that fully answers the question, but yeah, boundaries when it comes to working for a team versus working, individually for yourself are very different, because you do have so many more things that you have to worry about, and you have to make sure that you have in place, because then you are representing more than yourself. At that point, you're representing the Dolphins, and there's we can get into the conversations about credit and all that stuff. Like, that's a hot topic.
Yes, it is.
I'm always of the mind that if you got paid to do that shoot, you got paid to do that shoot. They own the rights to that image, and they don't necessarily need to credit you. But if your job as a freelancer, and I'm talking about like full-time staffers, right? But if your job as a freelancer, and your life depends on getting work, and more work as a freelancer, you better believe that credit's important. And there's multiple lawsuits out there right now about credit. So